All right, so this Time magazine cover with Elon Musk, right? Him just there in the Oval Office, behind the president's desk, with a coffee in hand. You really got to wonder what's his role is in all of this, what's going on in the administration. So that's what we're going to unpack today. Try to figure it all out, right? Go through some of these articles and reports you've shared and see if we can answer the big question. Is Musk the real power behind the presidency? And, I mean, if he is, could that cause friction with Trump? Because we all know Trump, he's not exactly known for sharing the spotlight, is he?
It's certainly a powerful image, especially when you think about it. This is Musk's second time cover, just in recent months.
Oh, that's right. The first one was back in November. They called him Citizen Musk then, and a kingmaker during the election. And now this new cover, it's almost like they're saying he's the one in charge now. I mean, literally sitting in the president's chair. So, do you think Times maybe poking the bear a little, knowing how much Trump fixates on these covers?
Oh, it's possible. You remember that fake Time cover that Trump had hanging up in all his golf clubs. I mean, his obsession with that magazine is pretty well documented. And his response to this new Musk cover. Is Time magazine still in business? Kind of says it all, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, he's trying to downplay it, but you can almost feel the irritation there.
Oh, absolutely. But beyond, just the looks of it. And maybe getting Trump riled up. What does this cover tell us about Musk's, actual power, his influence in the administration?
Well, currently, he's heading up the Department of Government Efficiency. They call it DOGE. And his main job, his mandate, is to shrink the federal workforce, cut it down significantly. But the interesting thing is, he seems to only answer to Trump himself, his campaign benefactor. Very little oversight from anyone else.
That's pretty unusual, that level of autonomy, even for someone Trump appointed.
Exactly. And, that lack of accountability is exactly what some of the lawsuits against Musk are targeting. They say this much power in one person's hands. It's not only undemocratic, but it basically creates a breeding ground for conflicts of interest, especially given Musk's massive business empire.
Right. I mean, how can he possibly make impartial decisions when, government contracts could directly affect his own companies?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's one that the White House hasn't really answered. They just give these vague assurances like, Musk will excuse himself from any contracts where he has a conflict of interest. Doesn't exactly inspire confidence, does it?
Not really, no. Seems like a temporary fix at best.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder, is Musk really calling the shots? Or is he just a figurehead? This whole thing, it reminds me of Steve Bannon back during Trump's first term. Remember how he was seen as the mastermind? The media called him President Bannon.
Yeah, I see the similarities. Time even put Bannon on their cover in 2017, called him the great manipulator.
Exactly. And in the end, I mean, it was that image, the idea that he was the one in control.
Yeah.
That was part of his downfall. So do you think? Could the same thing happen to Musk? Especially with Trump, who hates being overshadowed.
It's definitely possible. And what I find really interesting is Musk's been so quiet about all this. This is a guy who's usually all over social media. But on this Time cover and his bigger role in the administration, nothing.
That is strange. He's always been so outspoken, especially on X. What used to be Twitter. So why the sudden silence? Is he trying to lay low, avoid those Bannon comparisons, and any backlash?
Hard to say for sure, but even that silence, it's creating its own buzz. People are reading into it, trying to figure out what it all means. Some say it's weakness, others say it's a calculated move.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it makes you think, how long can he stay quiet before it starts to backfire?
Yeah.
Like, if he doesn't address this, aren't people just going to assume that Time's right, that he is the real power behind the presidency?
Yeah, that silence, it really adds another layer to this, doesn't it? But let's move on for a second. Let's look at what Musk's actually doing with all this power. These sources you shared, they mention his main goal. It's basically to do what he did at Twitter. X now, expert speaker, drastic downsizing, expert speaker. But this time it's way bigger, the whole federal government.
So, taking his playbook from the private sector and using it on the public sector, that's pretty bold. But what does that even look like? What agencies are on the chopping block? What programs?
Well, that's where things get a little fuzzy. Musk talks about cutting the workforce, but the details, they're kind of vague. A lot of speculation, obviously. Some people think he'll go after agencies like the EPA or departments like education, housing, areas that don't really fit with his own views. Others think it'll be more across the board, just streamlining, getting rid of redundancies.
Interesting. So it sounds like he's trying to, I don't know, run the government like a business. Like it's all about efficiency and profits. But, I mean, government's not a business, right? It's not just about the bottom line. There's social services, infrastructure, regulations, things that don't really fit into that corporate model.
You've hit a really important point there, and that's where a lot of the concerns come in. Critics say Musk's approach, it just doesn't work. It's too simple. It ignores how complex government really is. Shrinking the workforce sounds good, but what about the consequences? Longer wait times for services, worse oversight and regulation. What about the people who rely on government help? Those are big questions, and they're not really being addressed right now.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's easy to get caught up in this idea of Musk as the disruptor, the guy who's going to shake things up. But we have to look at the downsides, the things that could go wrong, the unintended consequences.
Exactly. These aren't just, theoretical debates. These decisions affect real people's lives.
So what are some of the specific concerns? You mentioned lawsuits before. Who's filing those? What are they about?
Right. So there are a few different legal challenges going on. One is from a group of public employee unions. They're saying Musk's appointment, the power he has, it's unconstitutional. They say Congress should be the one restructuring agencies, not the president. Another lawsuit comes from civil liberties groups. They're worried about discrimination, bias in the downsizing process. They think Musk's personal views on things like immigration or social welfare could affect his decisions about which programs get cut, which employees get let go.
So concerns about the process itself and the potential outcomes. But wouldn't all this be irrelevant if Trump's the one really making the decisions? I mean, he's the president. He appointed Musk.
That's true, but I think it's important to remember, even in the executive branch, there are checks and balances. Courts can review the president's actions. They can even overturn them if they're unconstitutional or illegal. And public pressure matters too. If enough people oppose what Musk's doing, if they start feeling the negative effects, that could force Trump to change course.
So it feels like there's just a lot of uncertainty right now.
Yeah.
Musk, with all this power, this mandate to downsize. Trump, unpredictable as always, and doesn't like to share the spotlight. And then the courts and the public potentially pushing back. It's an interesting mix, and maybe a little volatile.
Definitely. It's a situation that needs close attention. We have to watch what Musk does, the legal challenges, how the public reacts. This story's not over. And it could change how American government works in a big way.
It's like, I don't know, we're in uncharted territory here. This larger-than-life guy, Elon Musk,
Yeah.
coming into government, wanting to change everything. But, like we've been saying, so many unanswered questions, so many things that could go wrong. What do you think our listeners should really take away from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is this is about more than just headlines, more than personalities clashing. This is about what government is for, how it serves the people. Musk's idea, a smaller, more efficient government, it might sound good at first, but we really have to look at what could happen. What's the cost? Will essential services suffer? Public safety? The environment? Will it make inequality worse? These are the questions we should be asking before we just start cutting government down.
Absolutely. It's not just about saving money. It's about what we lose in the process and making sure those losses don't hit the people who need help the most.
Exactly. And we need to remember the bigger picture here. This isn't just happening in America. Governments are shrinking all over the world. The idea is that the private sector can do it better, but that comes with its own dangers. It can weaken public institutions, safety nets, people's trust in government.
That's a really good point. This is a global thing, so we need to understand what could happen, good and bad.
Absolutely. And another thing to remember, this isn't over. It's still changing. We don't have all the answers. Musk's plans are still developing. The legal battles are still going. Public opinion is still shifting. We have to stay informed, keep asking questions, and talk about what kind of future we want.
You know, it's kind of amazing how much debate this has caused. Some people see Musk as like a savior. He's going to fix this broken system. Others are terrified. They're worried about all that power in one person's hands, worried about corruption, about democracy itself.
Yeah, it really shows how divided we are, what government should even be, and it shows we need a better conversation about it. It's not just about being pro-government or anti-government. It's about finding that balance, making sure government is effective, it's accountable, but it also protects people's rights and serves everyone.
And that balance is going to be different for different people, different places. There's no easy answer.
That's right. And that's why it's so important to talk about these things, hear different views, and try to find solutions that work for everyone for the long term.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today, but this story is not going away anytime soon. as Musk moves forward, as the legal and political fights keep happening. It's going to be interesting
Yeah.
and maybe a little scary to see what happens.
I agree. There's a lot at stake here. And what happens will affect all of us. It's a reminder that we all have to do our part, stay informed, hold our leaders accountable, and help create the future we want for ourselves and for our kids and grandkids.
So to everyone listening, pay attention. This deep dive might be ending, but the conversation's just starting.